Hey everyone, greetings. It's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout and Outspoken. And as promised, I'm back. I'm trying to do the marathon, you guys. I'm trying to read a chapter of the 1560 Geneva Bible, comparing it with the Hebrew Bible, and comparing that with the Revised Standard Version every day. And so far, so good. I think this is my second day in a row, and I'm just going to keep going till Friday night. And it does get kind of always more exciting as the chapters unfold in close sequence. Pardon me, I have to plug this in. Okay, now we're plugged in. And things are going crazy, and things are going crazy in the Hebrew Bible and the 1560 Geneva Bible at Numbers 25, exactly mirroring the way they're going crazy in the world, as sectarian hostilities, fundamentalist Islam being theocratized in American cities and in Britain and all over the West, unfolds. And meanwhile, old sectarian hostilities within Christianity are re-erupting again. Catholics arguing with Protestants, evangelicals being argued at by various MAGA spokespeople for Christianity, Christian Zionists targeted by Christian non-Zionists. These are all like 16th century arguments that the modern world thought we had left behind, in a pluralistic secular present. But for whatever reason, God's plan is certainly unfolding. We're back to the 16th century. And another thing that's back, this is a theme of ours these days, is that hideous anti-Semitic mythologies are back. Medieval mythologies are back. The shadowy cabal, the occult, spell casters. Brian is taken to calling me Agent Dreidel because of the nonsensical theory of a dear friend of mine that saying Shabbat Shalom is part of an op, a CIA op, and bringing Christians to Shabbat worship if they want to come is part of an op. It's all getting ridiculous. And at these times, the actual word of God, what did God actually say? What do Jews actually believe? What is the Hebrew Bible really about? I think it's more important than ever to go back to primary texts. So here we are at Numbers 25. And yes, I have a headache because I went out for St. Patrick's Day with my Catholic husband, and we actually went to karaoke. He's so good at it. He did a beautiful rendition of Night Shift, which got a round of very enthusiastic applause. But it does mean that I had 2 shots of Jameson last night, which I don't usually do, and I'm paying the price. But that is not stopping me from joining you all for Bible study. And I'm not sure what kind of metaphor that is, except that, one of the themes we see in the Hebrew Bible is that our connection to God, our keeping God in mind, remembering God, which is a verb we've talked about a lot, is supposed to happen not just on Sundays, not just on Saturdays, not just on holy days, not just in church or synagogue. That's the least of it. God really, really, really wants to be participating in every banal little flawed detail of our lives. That's what's really in the Hebrew Bible and translated out of it subsequently in modern English editions. And we're not supposed to be perfect. We're supposed to try. God knows we are imperfect, and he always wants to hang out with us where we are as long as we are trying to get back to him. And the verb in Hebrew in this context is tshuva, which lashuv, is to go back, to return. And in fact, people who become Orthodox after having been secular, who are Jewish, are called choser tshuva, which means to go back in returningness, right? It's one of those double intensifiers that I call your attention to that are so beautiful. So God is always there for us to return to, and he always wants us to return. And that's a verb you see a lot when he's talking to us. It's not like, how dare you fall away from me? You're damned forever. That's not the message in the Hebrew Bible. It is always, I mean, some people really are lost forever. We've seen that. God knows what happens to them after they get swallowed up by the earth. The story doesn't describe what their fate is, in the afterlife, if any. But he always wants us to turn back, no matter how far we've messed up or gone astray. So I had 2 shots of Jameson. Yes, I've got a headache. God understands. I was being a good wife. And I am back with the Geneva Bible, the 1560 Geneva Bible. And so here we go. So to refresh your memory, everyone, the last 3 chapters were really huge, climactic chapters in so many ways. And those of you who are following along, you remember it was Balaam, the pagan soothsayer, not even a member of the tribe of the children of Israel, being asked by Balak, the pagan king, come look at these people. They're so numerous. It's a rumor that God is with them. You've got to curse them for me. And that was a technology that Balaam had used before many times. He had quite a reputation as being an effective curser. Like, this was a real thing in the ancient world. Magic really existed. I mean, there are magi, which means magicians, coming to witness the birth of the baby Jesus in the gospel. So this was a job description. People used magic at that time. And that's why there are prohibitions against using magic in the Hebrew Bible, because people did it, right? And which is really interesting to me, because it suggests that magic works. It's very intriguing. If it didn't work, people wouldn't do it, and there wouldn't be a prohibition against it. Anyway, it's not the kind of power as God, this God, that God in the highest, Elohim, wants us to draw on. He wants us to align with his power, which is the ultimate power. But Balaam didn't want to do it. He said, I can only speak what God puts in my mouth. Balak didn't listen. You remember what happened. The donkey, the ass, the she-ass, refused to go forward 3 times. And then Balaam beat her, and God gave her the power of speech. And she's like, why are you beating me? Aren't I your donkey? Haven't you ridden on me? That fantastic dialogue. As I keep saying, exactly the way you'd expect an animal that you've lived with for years to speak to you if you suddenly were unreasonable with that animal and that animal could speak to you. And then Balak kept saying, come to this mountain. Look, they're so numerous, curse them. And Balaam wouldn't do it. Okay, let's go over to that mountain. You can see them from this angle. Go ahead and curse them. Balaam wouldn't do it. Multiple times, that fairy tale iteration of 3 times. Balaam wouldn't do it. And he kept saying, you could fill your house with gold and silver, fill my house with gold and silver. I still can't do it. I can't curse whom God has not cursed. I have to bless whom God has blessed. And this went on. And finally, Balak lost his temper and said, I brought you all the way here to curse these people. You won't do it. And then what we heard in the last reading, this incredible climactic Numbers 24, oh my goodness, was the famous, how goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. And, he who curses you shall be cursed. He who blesses you shall be blessed. And it's not the first time that blessing has come out of the mouth of God. In this case, the Spirit of God resting on Balaam. It's the second time, I believe. But there are variations of it throughout. God is it's such an interesting thing that this is such a hot button issue right now. What is why do they think they're the chosen people? It's really being twisted in anti-Semitic discourse right now. And I'm just going to restate, if you read the Hebrew Bible, we don't say we're the chosen people. It's not our idea. We don't like it. We don't want it. We're constantly trying to wriggle away from this job that God has assigned to us. And again, chosen, I will say it over and over because this is like the argument of our time. Chosen doesn't mean better. It means certain responsibilities. And other people have other responsibilities, as I can't stress enough. Other people who are not the children of Israel certainly have the responsibility to follow the 7 Noahide laws. And we can talk about that. But God has plans for everybody. And God also has plans for all the rest of the world. And he says this over and over in the Hebrew Bible when he talks about the future and that the descendants of Jacob, and he did in the last chapter through Balaam, the descendants of Jacob are going to be as numerous as the stars in the sky, as abundant as the waters, and they're going in through them. There will be a blessing to the rest of humanity, which is God's law, right? God's moral sensibility, and also in Numbers 24. I'm just refreshing your memory. There was something for Christians too. That incredible passage about a star will go forth from Jacob, a scepter will arise out of Israel. And many Christian scholars have read backwards from the life of Jesus into this passage and said it foretells Jesus as the Messiah. Now, to be really clear, and I've said this so many times, forgive me, but some things just come up again and again. The Hebrew Bible is a messianic text, right? Periodically and consistently, God says there's going to be a ruler that arises, a servant, a star, different metaphors, a redeemer. And so the idea of a Messiah was not new in the first century when Jesus, the Jew, walked the streets of Jerusalem and the towns of the Galilee. It was very, very baked in to Judaism, and which existed at that point. Like the word Jew didn't exist during the period that we're reading about in Numbers. It was the tribe of Israel, or the tribes of Israel, the children of Israel. But the inheritance of Jesus, Yeshua, son of Joseph and Mary, was so inextricably imbued with this notion that a Messiah, a Jewish Messiah, would arise out of the seed of Jesse, out of the descendants of Jesse, and so that was waiting there, and the first century was a very messianic time. There were lots of claimants to be the Messiah. And people talked about the Messiah. Now, they talked about it in a very different way than how Jesus talked about himself. Jews, using this inheritance from the Hebrew Bible, saw, and also because of their history of being oppressed cruelly by various empires at that time, by Rome, saw the Messiah that they were waiting for as a nationalist Messiah who would be militant and militaristic, like Bar Kokhba, who led a rebellion against the Roman Empire, which was successful for a little while, which is kind of incredible. And they were waiting for a redeemer on earth, not just in the afterlife. But the Messianic age was something that Holy Scripture had prepared us as Jews to expect would happen eventually, because God keeps promising it in the Hebrew Bible. So this is another reason, like we could argue who's the Messiah, why don't Jews believe the Messiah's already come? I think that's such a rich subject. I'd like to bring like a rabbi and a priest, not to do it like a joke opener, but I feel like I need a rabbi and a priest, or a rabbi and a priest and a minister to answer that question. I mean, the simple answer, and please don't, try to crucify me, is that as you're hearing in the Hebrew Bible, some Jews did follow Jesus as the Messiah, but most didn't, unless there's a branch of Christian Judaism, which I think there is, which kind of died out or was cut off or erased from the records. And Robert Eisenman, a really interesting scholar, thinks that too. Various other scholars think that too. But God keeps telling us there is no one but me. There's no one but me. You'll have no other gods but me. And he's very clear about it. So when a discourse arose of, that's all, that's actually, it's a Trinity, right? Well, that happened centuries after Jesus's life. But the idea that anyone would claim to be uniquely in a divine relationship to God, and even Moses didn't claim that, as you see. Abraham didn't claim that. They had unique relationships with God, but they didn't say, I'm the son of God, or, God the Father, is in intimate communion with me, and I'm going to sit at his right hand. They didn't say anything like that. We are taught that that's, I'm just going to say it. We're taught that that's blasphemous. We are. And there's only one God. God says it over and over and over, and go to the Father. So I hope that helps you understand, but I can't make the case, right? Just in a sentence. I'm just going to keep reading, and you'll see in the Hebrew Bible over and over and over and over, which is also the Christian Bible. The Old Testament is part of Christianity, that God says, there's no one but me. There's only one. It is a monotheistic message. Don't go after other gods. Humans aren't gods. And Slavika Vukmanovic says, many believe in the Trinity, but not all. This brings up really interesting theological points. We also believe that there's only one God. Well, this is a fascinating subject and very germane in a way. And Loki always wants to sit on my lap when we're about to read the Word of God, which I think is so cute and telling. But please don't hate me, everyone. It took several centuries for Jesus to be seen as God, several centuries after his death. It didn't take several centuries for him to be seen as the Son of God, or part of God, or sent by God. But the alignment of Jesus, the man who walked the earth, with God Almighty as the same being, and then the theology of the Trinity, is much later than Jesus's life. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't believe whatever you believe, right? Who knows who's right? I personally think anyone trying to find God, gets the benefit of the doubt, right, from God. But you do have to understand, I think, first century contexts in which, everyone's so mad at Jews for not getting it. Oh, this is, God on earth. This is the Messiah. People in his own era and generation didn't say, well, I want to be sure I'm saying this scripturally correctly. The idea that Jesus Christ is God, instead of being a manifestation or a messenger or a son of, or part of, or aligned with, that is to Jews a forbidden sentence, right? No one's supposed to be God but God. And I'm just going to say it because that's the truth. My rabbi said Jews have to stop hiding and just be proud of who they are. And as upset as this might make you, I'm sorry, I love Jesus Christ. I love him very much. I think he's a great rabbi. I think he's, a real spiritual presence in the world. I don't understand how. I've had an experience of, feeling connected to him, feeling like I was in his presence. I've talked about it. Nonetheless, it is absolutely forbidden by God for Jews to take anyone but God as God. And you can be as mad at us as you want, but we didn't make that up. God said it, and as you can hear in verse after verse, chapter after chapter, God said it over and over and over again. And Slavika Vukmanovic says Jesus himself said that he's not God. Well, I don't want to open, thank you. I don't want to open up that particular can of worms because different Christian sects believe very different things about this. And, wars have been fought over this question between Christians. And I really want to leave that alone till we get there. And by that time, I need to learn Aramaic or Greek so I can read you the gospel and understand it. But actually, I really need to start learning Aramaic and Greek so I can be competent when I get there. But I just want to, in this time, as the children of Israel are, waiting to enter the land of Israel, and even with Numbers 24 saying a Messiah will arise, you have to not blame Jews for not necessarily seeing the guy they knew. And again, in the gospel, is this not Jesus of Bethlehem? Don't we know his mom and dad and brothers and sisters? That's what the Jews were saying. Like, this is a guy. We know who this is. You can't be mad at them for not seeing the idea of the Messiah the way people who are Christians see it 1,500 to 2,000 years later, right? You can't, because that's ahistorical. Thank you. They were waiting for a Davidic Messiah, a nationalist Messiah. Many of the things Yeshua did signaled that, riding a donkey into Jerusalem with palms, right? That's from a prophetic verse that we're going to reach, I believe. Many of the things he did were foreshadowed in this messianic messaging in the Hebrew Bible, but we weren't told it would look like that, right? We weren't. And we were also told, don't treat anyone else as a divinity. Don't worship anything else. Don't except God himself. So, sorry, you can't blame people for being who they are in that time. And you certainly can't blame us for listening closely to what God said for the 5 books of Moses into the prophets and the commentaries. Okay, so let's leave that aside. Well, Mickey Blue Eye says, no, it's not much later. I think you should stick to medical manipulation. Okay, well, I strongly believe, just like I did with creating an important book that deconstructed with 3,500 expert volunteers what the Pfizer papers had to say. I'm an English major. I have no scientific or medical background, but I do believe, like the translators of the 1560 Geneva Bible, that everyone has the right to read primary sources and to think for themselves. And that when there's a scrim of gatekeepers around something important like medical information or religious doctrine, it's very unethical and disempowering. People should be able to see, read, hear, think for themselves. And I think this is very clear from the text we're reading that God's on the side of that, right? At least in the Hebrew Bible. And, I'm entitled to read scholarship about the first century, which I've read abundantly. Many, many, many Christian scholars of Jesus's life reach many different conclusions. But there's a very interesting book called How Jesus Became God that I do recommend if you're ready for it. You might want to read. But it is absolutely not the case that even in Paul's epistles, he talks about Jesus as a manifestation of God, but the Trinity was a later construction. It was, I think it was the Council of Nicaea. I have to double check. But let's, this is why I think Judaism is awesome, and Judaism adjacentness, which is what you all are doing with me here, is awesome, because we're entitled to argue, right? We're entitled to bring our evidence. We're entitled to have debates about what the text means and what theology is and what's the best theological interpretation of the evidence. We're entitled to in the Jewish tradition. That is our way of worshiping God, wrestling with the law. And we're not supposed to just take what some priest or theological scholar says is true. We're supposed to wrestle with it ourselves. So if you want to bring me evidence that at the time of Jesus's life, and I'm not talking about in Paul's epistles, which are later, he was called God, I will correct myself, but it is my understanding that that was an evolution, and certainly that the Trinity happened later. The idea of the Trinity was hammered out as theology later. So let's bracket that now. Gosh, we've gone on for quite a while as a preamble, and I'm getting lots of lovey. Oh, well, that's interesting. There are not, okay. Christ Jesus is the Messiah. No one is mad. There are not Christian sects. There's only Christ Jesus. Well, respectfully, history shows otherwise. There may well be theologically only one Jesus, ultimately, beyond human arguments. But history shows that Christians are always fighting each other about, what is the meaning of Jesus. And I will just direct you to the Reformation, in which there was violent battles, including closing of monasteries all over England and arrests and executions of leaders on one side or another, battles going all the way up to the crown. Was England going to be Catholic? Was England going to be Protestant? Was England going to be Catholic? Was England going to be Protestant? Was Rome the church that would oversee England, or was the Church of England, which was invented, as a result of these conflicts, what would oversee England? It is not true that there are not different Christian denominations. There are many different denominations. And this is beautiful. I love Paul. He said, God said, it is not the children of God who is the children of God. It is the children of the promise who are the descendants, I think is what you're saying. Totally. Paul had a different mission than Jesus did. And they both said that. Paul was later, like a generation later. He never met Jesus personally. He had an encounter with spiritual Jesus. And he was a Hellenized Jew. I can't say this enough. Christ wasn't a Hellenized Jew. He was a Jewish Jew. And Paul was talking to Greeks and Romans and pagans and some Jews. But his intention was to create, which he did very brilliantly, a version of Jesus's message, which is a version of the Old Testament for everyone. Pagan, Jew, slave, free, men, women. He made that very clear. And he did an incredible job. But it was a different audience. That's why he said so many things about, like, you don't have to keep kosher, you don't have to circumcise your children. That's fine. Like, through him, many, many, many people who were not Jewish got a doorway into what Jesus was saying, which goes back to the Hebrew Bible, with, incredible innovations of his own. Of course, I'm not trying to suggest that Jesus didn't build beautiful, like radically transform people's understanding of God's Mosaic law. He did. But Jesus said, the law will endure forever, not a jot or tittle will change. That's Matthew. And Paul said very differently, you don't have to worry about the law. You don't have to observe the mitzvot. You don't have to keep kosher. You don't have to be circumcised, because he was trying to bring this message to a pagan world, a Hellenized world, a Greco-Roman world, that it would have been a dead letter if he had said, yeah, you all have to convert to Judaism in order to follow Jesus. So they're different missions, different messages, certainly aligned, right, in many ways, but I personally, I'm much more compelled by Jesus than Paul. Sorry, because I think Jesus was extraordinary and probably some kind of being that we can't even understand. As a Jew, of course, I can't say that he is God. I don't feel that he is God. I'm sorry. Anyway, let's not get mired too much into this. There's no simple answer to that. Let's go back to the text. All right, here we go. Now, we're going to start, as always, with the 1560 Geneva Bible, the Founders Bible. And by the way, to Mickey, the reason the 1560 Geneva Bible exists, I don't know if you have been following along with us, is exactly because of those arguments between Christian denominations. These were people translating the Hebrew Bible at risk of their lives in Geneva, because if they did it in England, which was Catholic at that time, they would have been martyred. Some of them were martyred. Okay. Chapter 25, and the subheadline, which you always recall is not in the original, is the people commit fornication with the daughters of Moab. Pinchas kills Tzimri and Cosbi. God makes his covenant with Pinchas. God commands to kill the Midianites. Now, this is a very intense chapter. I just trigger warning everyone. No children in the room, please. It's got sex and murder. All right. Now, whilst Israel abode in Shittim, and can you see that? No, because I did not share that with you correctly. I'm so sorry. There you go. Now, while Israel stayed in Shittim, the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab, which called the people unto the sacrifice of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. And Israel coupled himself unto Baal Peor, the evil Baal god. Wherefore for that reason, the wrath of the Lord was kindled against Israel. And the note says, worshipped the idol of the Moabites, which was on the hill of Peor. And the Lord said unto Moshe, take all the heads of the people and hang them up before the Lord against the sun, that the indignation of the Lord's wrath may be turned from Israel. Pretty harsh. Then Moshe said unto the judges of Israel, everyone slay his men that were joined unto Baal Peor. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianite woman in the sight of Moshe and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who wept before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the note says, repenting that they had offended God. And when Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from the midst of the congregation and took a spear in his hand and followed the man of Israel into the tent and thrust them both through, to wit, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. So the plague ceased from the children of Israel. And there died in that plague 24,000. Then the Lord spoke unto Moshe, saying, Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, has turned my anger away from the children of Israel, while he was zealous for my sake among them. Therefore I have not consumed the children of Israel in my jealousy. Wherefore say to him, behold, I give unto him my covenant of peace, and he shall have it, and his seed, his descendants after him, even the covenant of the priest's office forever, because he was zealous for his God, and he has made an atonement for the children of Israel. And the note says he has pacified God's wrath. And the name of the Israelite that thus slain, which was killed with the Midianite woman, was Tzimri, the son of Salu, prince of the family of the Simeonites, the tribe of Simeon. And the name of the Midianitish woman that was slain was Cosbi, the daughter of Tsur, who was head over the people of his father's house in Midian. Again, the Lord spoke unto Moshe, saying, Vex the Midianites and smite them, for they trouble you with their wiles. Wherefore, by which they have beguiled you as concerning Peor, and as concerning their sister Cosbi, the daughter of a prince of Midian, which was slain in the day of the plague because of Peor. And the note says, causing you to commit both corporal and spiritual fornication by Balaam's counsel. That's right. So that is the end of that chapter. It's a pretty short chapter. I'm going to stop sharing, but it's pretty harsh and intense. And don't feel bad, Mickey. You interact great. Paul was great. I'm with you, and we'll get there, I promise. I'm just sharing kind of my sense of the difference between them. And also, like, as a Jew, I'm not going to need Paul the way that people who don't come from this tradition need Paul, because Paul opens a door into this Jewish heritage that is kind of cleansed of its Jewishness for non-Jews. And that was God's wish, obviously. So I'm not trying to be critical of Paul, just sharing my personal feelings that they come from different worlds, Jesus and Paul. All right, back to the Midianites. This story is pretty scary. God has been much, much more available, understanding, human in many, many cases than later translations show him to be. But in this case, and a few other cases, he's so much more harsh, and I don't want to say punitive, but his justice is swift, right? Karma is swift, and he doesn't equivocate. Like, there are some things, and they're always the same things, it's infidelity. There are some things that he doesn't tolerate. And if you think about it, the strange fire was spiritual infidelity. The golden calf was spiritual infidelity. Like, he is really serious that he does not want us to go whoring after false gods or other gods or idols. Very serious. And in a modern world that doesn't have idols in the same way, this could seem irrational or like jealous in a weirdly controlling way. But I kind of understand it, even though I recognize that it's very, very, very harsh to, stab to death a man who's sleeping with a Midianite woman and worshiping with her at Baal's altar. But God is trying to establish something that has never existed before, which is a whole new way of worshiping. And it's a whole new way of worshiping or relating to him that doesn't have to do with throwing babies into a fire, which is what Baal worship was at this time. Or, idolatry is a very unspiritual way to worship, right? It's a statue, you sacrifice to it, or you give it some oil or some wheat, or you sacrifice children to it, or humans in some parts of the world, right? God didn't want that anymore. And he wanted, in idols, the relationship people have to idols is not the relationship God wanted with us, which was a conscious, loving, human to humanish God, goddish human to human, right? This Venn diagram of humans and God, a real, authentic, interactive, thoughtful, willing, free will relationship. That's not what idolatry is. And so it's not just like a controlling boyfriend who won't let you chat with an old friend from summer camp, on Facebook, right? It's and beats you up, right? That's not what he's doing, but he is categorically not wanting to tolerate us deviating from the job he has set for us, which is to develop that relationship with him and to respect it and to be like in a marriage with him, right? Wow, Slavica has a lot of really interesting things to say. All of you do, I should say. And you're right, that's true. God consistently heard their cries and acted decisively to save them. And in many cases, physically fighting on their behalf. Very true. But in this case, you know, there is a horrible plague because the children of Israel are worshiping Baal, which is like the worst. You know, that means they're sacrificing their children to Baal or slave children. It's the worst of the worst, right? But any idol worship is not acceptable to this God, the God of all. And so he did ask for all the heads of the tribes that had been whoring after false gods to be handed over to be hanged against the sun so everyone could see this. And rather than that happening, one guy was so zealous to do God's will, he personally killed these two people who were in a relationship that was betraying, you know, God's request, and in a relationship with a woman who was luring other Israelites to worship Baal. And that appeased God's wrath. So even though it seems very harsh that he was okay with the stabbing to death of these two people, it was less harsh than what he had planned. And so he said, okay, fine, you've atoned for it. You know, I have a pact of peace with you. I won't demand that those heads of all of the, you know, whoring after false gods tribes get strung up against the sun. So it was an averting of a worse crisis. And this, you've seen this pattern a lot in the Hebrew Bible. It's something really bad is about to happen. And then God's like, okay, fine. You know, like, yeah. And that's right. God does not tolerate this kind of evil and cannot allow it to continue and grow. Beautiful. Anne Vance says something super profound. You guys are on fire. Personal relationship, which you can't have with an idol. Exactly right. Exactly right. Absolutely. All right, let's move on, you guys, quickly, and we'll go to the Hebrew. Let's see what it says in the Hebrew. All right, here we are, the beautiful Hebrew text. Vayeshev Israel b'Shittim, and Israel settled in Shittim, like literally sat. V'yachel ha'am liznot el bnot Moav, and the people began to, zonah is a prostitute, so liznot, to prostitute themselves, to engage in prostitution, el, toward the daughters of Moab. V'tikra la'am, and they literally called to the people, le'zivchei Eloheihen. Wow, it's so much more powerful in the Hebrew. To the sacrifices of their gods, plural, Eloheihen. Elohim is the singular, it's actually plural, but it always refers to the one God. And this is Eloheihen, their gods. And it's feminine, plural. So it's really, imagine a bunch of seductive Moabite women saying, ooh, come over here, you know, let's go to the sacrifice. And then who knows what we might get up to. That's what this conveys. It's their female, the female version of their gods. Va'yochal ha'am v'yishta chavu, and the people ate, meaning ate non-sacred food, and prostrated, literally bowed themselves, le'eloheihen, to their gods, again, feminine version, to the women's gods. Vayitzmed Israel, and Israel became attached leBaal, to Baal, Peor, you know, on the mountain of Peor. Ve'yachar af, and literally the nostril flared, right? The anger of the God flared, Adonai, God, B'Israel, in Israel, against Israel. Vayomer Adonai, and God said, El Moshe, toward Moshe, Kach, take, et kol Roshei ha'am, all the literally heads of the people, ve'hoka otam, L'Adonai neged hashemesh, wow, and hang them before the Lord against the sun. V'yasov Haron af Adonai Misrael, and then the flaring anger of the Lord will be removed from Israel. Vayomer Moshe el Siftei Israel, and Moses said to the judges of Israel, Hirgu ish anashav, each of you kill those men, hatzmadim leBaal Peor, who are attached to Baal Peor. Vehine ish mibnei Israel, and here an Israelite man, a man of the sons of Israel, children of Israel, came, vekarev el Echav, and et Hamidyanit, and brought toward his brothers, literally his brothers, the Midianite woman, it's feminine, le'enei Moshe, before the eyes of Moses, le'enei kol adat bnei Israel, to the eyes of the entire congregation of Israel, vehema bochim petach ohel moed, and they were weeping at the entrance to the tent of meeting. V'yara, so it's almost like he's bringing her to spare, to hope to spare the whole rest of the congregation. V'yar Pinchas ben Elazar, and Pinchas, the son of Elazar, saw this. Ben Aharon HaKohen, the son of Aaron the Cohen. So he's a nephew. No, he's a great nephew of Moshe's. V'yakam mitoch ha'edah, and he stood up from among the congregation. V'yakach romach biyado, and he took a spear in his hand. V'yavo achar ish Yisrael, he went after the man of Israel, el hakubah, to the chamber, v'yid kor et shnehem, and he drove it into both of them. Et ish Yisrael ve'et ha'isha, through the Israelite man and through the woman, el kavata, through her stomach, ve'te'atzar hama gefa me'al bnei Israel, and the plague ceased from the children of Israel. Ve'hayu hamitim, and there were the dead ones, bema gefa, in the plague, arba'a ve'esrim elef, for 24,000. V'yedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, and you should be able to understand that by now, I'm sure, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aharon HaKohen, Phineas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron the Cohen, Heshiv et chamati me'al bnei Israel, has turned away my anger from the children of Israel, Bekano, in his zealously, et kinati, Bekano et kinati. Here's another beautiful repetition. By zealously avenging me, betocham, among them, velo chiliti et bnei Israel bekinati, and I did not destroy the children of Israel because of my zeal. So this has a repetition of kin'ah, which can mean jealousy or zeal, right? And this is important because these are two very different meanings in English. But it's like passion for someone, like exclusive passion. Et kinati, and they use, whoever composed this, use that root 3 times in this sentence. The murderer has the zeal for God or is jealous on behalf of God, and therefore God is zealous to not destroy the children of Israel. Lechen emor hineni, therefore say, here, noten lo et briti shalom. Here I give him my covenant, brit, like brit milah, is bris, is how it's pronounced in Yiddish. It's a covenant, right? The bris, where a boy is circumcised, is one of the covenants. It's called a covenant. Et briti shalom, my covenant of peace. Ve'haita lo lezar'o, and it shall be for him and his descendants, literally his seed, acharav, after him, brit kehunat olam, an eternal covenant of kehuna, and that means like priestliness, same root as Cohen, and forever is so beautiful. In Hebrew, it's also olam, world. So when you say kehunat olam, it means a priesthood forever, but it also means a priesthood for the world. Tachat asher kine le'elohav, because he was zealous or jealous on behalf of his God. Ve'yi chaper al bnei Israel, and thus is implied he atoned for the children of Israel. And there's that root, you know it, lechaper. It's the same root as Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, to atone. Ve'shem ish Yisrael, and the name of the man of Israel, ha-mukeh asher hukah et ha-Midianit, who was killed, who was slain with the Midianite woman, and you've got an echo, asher hukah ha-mukeh, that who was struck, who was killed, asher hukah et ha-Midianit, who was killed with the Midianite. It's an emphasis, twice they were killed. Zimri ben Salu Nasi Beit of Leshim Oni. The Midianite was Tzimri, the son of Salu, the chieftain of the Simeonite paternal house. Now, this is important because she was pretty high up there. She was an aristocrat. Veshem ha'isha hamuka, and the name of the killed woman, the slain woman, Hamidianit, the Midianite woman, Kozbi, was Kozbi, et bat Tzur, the daughter of Tzur, Rosh Umot Beit of B'Midianhu, a national leader of a paternal house, literally the house of the father in Midian, a very senior person, of course. V'yidaber Adonai el Moshe le'emor, and you know what that means, I bet. And spoke God toward Moshe to say, tzaror, distress, upset, et Hamidianim, the Midianites, ve'hikitemotam, and you shall smite them. Ki sorerim hem lachem, because they distress you. Benich lehem, with their plots. Asher niklu lachem, which they contrived, again a repetition, which they plotted against you. Al dvar peor ve'al dvar kazbi bat nasi Midian. In the incident of Peor, meaning the seduction of people to worship at Peor, and in the incident of Kozbi, their sister, Bat Nasi Midian, the daughter of the Midianite chieftain, literally prince, Achotam Hamuka Biyom Hama Gefa al Dvar Peor, who was slain on the day of the plague that had come because of the matter or the issue of Peor. So God is super clear about why he did what he did, and that the children of Israel are not to have pity or compassion on the people, on the Midianite people, but to smite them. And he's like, you gotta you've got to not tolerate any, not make excuses for any of the seductions of the women of the Midianites to the worship of Baal. And James Green, my friend, you're usually so supportive, but you don't like the monotonal reading of scripture. Well, I do apologize. I'm not perfectly fluent in Hebrew, and it is actually quite difficult. So there are occasionally words I don't recognize. And Hebrew is very difficult to read. It doesn't have vowels in the normal sense. It has little dots that indicate where a vowel sound should be. So it's, imagine, James, if you were reading an English text with no vowels at all, just little dots signifying that's an A sound, that's an O sound, but no vowel letters. And I guess there's one, which is Vav. And also in real time, I'm translating while I'm reading. And that, that may be slow at times or monotonous. Part of the reason it may sound monotonous, honestly, and I've explained this before, is when you're reading the Torah, you absolutely have to do it perfectly. You can't skip along and make a mistake. If you make a mistake, you have to go back and do it over. There's incredible reverence that we are supposed to bring to the act of reading the Torah, which I am doing for you. Thank you, Roscoe. I don't mean to start a fight with you, with you all, but Roscoe's coming to my defense. It's okay. James Green is wonderful. Maybe I'm just getting on his nerves. Roscoe's wonderful. Everyone's wonderful. But this is a really interesting, I think it's an interesting chapter. I can't wait to see what happens next. But it is definitely true that it is, difficult and sometimes slow to translate in real time Hebrew to English. Another reason it's difficult, honestly, it's not like translating in real time from Italian or French, other languages that have roots with English. Hebrew and English have almost no roots in common. They're completely different sentence structures. As you can hear when I'm translating, you can hear how Hebrew, inverts nouns, inverts verbs, puts the subject at the end of the sentence instead of the beginning, and other super weird things like the word coming and going is the same, right? And often something that is described as happening in the future is the tense that's used is in the past and vice versa. So it is definitely harder than just zipping back and forth from, a modern Spanish poet to English, which I'm sure would go much quicker. All right, but nonetheless, we're going to forge ahead, and thank you. Oh, that's really nice. Roscoe says that reading the Torah will confer blessings, say the Kabbalists, even if you don't know the language. That's super beautiful. Well, my humble task is to bring you the Hebrew Bible and look at how it got translated and mistranslated into English over the years. So let's go over a little bit. Recently, we've been going over, but that's okay. We're going to go about 15 minutes over our usual hour, and this is the Revised Standard Version. Can everybody see that? Yes, you can. RSV. Well, Israel, worship of Baal of Peor. And remember that subheadline is not in the original. And honestly, I would say, I don't know that that's, I may just nitpick the Revised Standard Version. I don't mean to, but the subject of this chapter to me is about much more than the worship of Baal of Peor. It's about a wholesale kind of dilution of the children of Israel via the seductions of another society, and specifically sexual seductions as well as religious seductions. And these are definitely described as being intermingled. So the children of Israel being seduced away, from the difficult worship and the less sexy worship that God is asking of them. All right. While Israel dwelt in Shittim, the people began to play the harlot with the daughters of Moab. This is I hate this translation, play the harlot. It is literally prostitute. They prostitute themselves. And so it's much stronger than this, ooh, let's play the harlot, right? It's not playing in the Hebrew. It's they are prostituting themselves. They are engaging in prostitution. And what I kind of love is the language in Hebrew describes men as prostituting themselves and not just the women as prostituting themselves. these, meaning these women, invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. So Israel yoked himself to Baal of Peor. I think attached himself is more accurate. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. And the Lord said to Moshe, take all the chiefs of the people and hang them in the sun before the Lord, that the fierce anger of the Lord may turn away from Israel. And Moshe said to the judges of Israel, every one of you slay his men who have yoked themselves to Baal of Peor. That's reasonably accurate. And behold, one of the people of Israel came and brought a Midianite woman to his family. That's not right. It's literally to his brothers. In the sight of Moshe and in the sight of the whole congregation of the people of Israel, while they were weeping at the door of the tent of meeting, brought a Midianite woman to his family. That totally changes the scene. It sounds in this mistranslation like the man of Israel brought a Midianite woman to join his family, like as a concubine privately. But this happened in the sight of Moses and the whole congregation. But in the Hebrew, he brought her to his brothers in the sight of Moses. And that's really, it's literally brothers. Family is a different word. Family is mishpacha. And the word in Hebrew is achav. Ach is a brother. Achav is his brothers. In the Hebrew, it's much more like he's bringing her to be judged and to be, punished, and saying, look, this is the woman who did it. It's not a private thing at all. When Pinchas, the son of Elazar, son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he rose and left the congregation. And again, this is one of those theologically oriented word choices in the RSV that I don't agree with. I guess it's the congregation, but it's not. It's more like the community. And took a spear in his hand and went after the man of Israel into the inner room, literally the chamber, and pierced both of them, the man of Israel and the woman, through her body, its stomach. In Hebrew and in the Geneva Bible, it's something. What did he do? What did they do? It's very different in the Geneva Bible. Bear with me. I think it's important, because why are they being euphemistic about this? In the Geneva Bible, and followed the man of Israel into the tent and thrust them both through, to wit, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. So the plague ceased. So you should know that belly includes, in 16th century language, includes is a euphemism for womb. Yeah. And so it definitely has a sexual component, and it's not like stomach, and it's not body. It's much more like he was punishing her for her sexual sin, right? It's definitely got a sexual connotation. And then they just said in the Revised Standard Version, he pierced the woman through her body. That's so vague. This is why people hate reading the Bible. It's so vague. What do you mean? It's so like concrete in the original. Thus the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. Nevertheless, those that died by the plague were 24,000. And the Lord said to Moses, Pinchas, the son of Elazar, son of Aaron the priest, has turned back my wrath from the people of Israel, in that he was jealous with my jealousy among them, so that I did not consume the people of Israel in my jealousy. So here you have a repetition of kine 3 times, but as I've said, it can be translated as zealous as well as jealous, like passionate attachment. The Revised Standard Version consistently chooses the less sympathetic meaning, which is jealous. Oh my God, this God is so petty. He's so jealous. He's going to kill people because they, made the mistake of worshiping another God. That's really out of control. No, he's zealous. He's zealous to be close with the children of Israel. He longs for them. He wants them. Kina is a longing, it implies a longing as well as a kind of possessiveness. Therefore I say, behold, I will give to him my covenant of peace, and it shall be to him and to his descendants, literally seed after him, the covenant of a perpetual priesthood, because he was jealous for his God and made atonement for the people of Israel. Okay, zealous, but yes. The name of the slain man of Israel who was slain with a Midianite woman was Tzimri, the son of Salu, head of a father's house belonging to the Simeonites. And the name of the Midianite woman who was slain was Cosbi, the daughter of Tzur, who was the head of the people of a father's house in Midian. That's accurate. And the Lord said to Moses, harass the Midianites and smite them. I think distress is better. Tsar means the root is narrow, so it's like straits, difficulties. So I would say it's stronger than harass. It's like stress them out and smite them, for they have harassed you with their wiles. It's literally plots, much stronger, with which they beguiled you in the manner of Peor, and in the matter of Peor, and in the matter of Cosbi, the daughter of the prince of Midian, their sister, who was slain on the day of the plague on account of Peor. They have harassed you with their wiles. What was it at the end there in Hebrew? That doesn't sound right. In Hebrew, it's for they distress you with their plots, which they contrived against you in the incident of Peor, and in the incident of Cosbi, their sister, the daughter of the Midian chieftain, who was slain on the day of the plague that had come because of Peor. Sorerim hem lachem. So they distress you with their plots. I think that's stronger than they have harassed you with their wiles. Plots is a much more serious thing than, someone's wiles. And distress is more serious than harass. So again, the Revised Standard Version kind of weakens the intensity of what's going on, and, once again, creates an unreasonable and unattractive, definition of God's temperament that really is, I don't think, so definitively there in that passage, again, because kine could be read as jealous or zealous. And softens the hostility and the threat of the Midianites, which is a weird editorial decision to make. Why would you do that? I guess thus making the children of Israel seem, irrational, and making God seem also irrational and impatient and inflexible. That's it, guys. It's 7:07, 7:08 East Coast time. I will stop there. Roscoe, you're learning so much. Roscoe says Nisan 1 begins shortly. Chodesh Tov, see 12 days of Nisan. I'll need to look into that. I know that a new month is beginning. The rabbi spoke about it at Chabad. And, the months in the Hebrew calendar, of course, are different than, or the Jewish calendar are different than the Roman calendar, which we use. By the way, James Green, if I sounded monotonous when I was reading, it's also because I'm hungover. I explained that at the beginning of the reading, but explained that God would rather have us hungover reading the Torah than not hungover and not reading the Torah. I'm fully convinced of that. Let's see what you are saying. In Christian theology, God delivers his people, I think we read that, from oppressive leaders through both direct and divine intervention, and by empowering individuals to act with courage based on biblical narratives and Christian history. This deliverance often takes the form of spiritual, social, or in rare cases, physical liberation, with a strong emphasis on God acting as a stronghold for the oppressed. Beautifully put. Here's how God delivers his people from oppressive leaders. 1, raising up deliverers and leaders God frequent. We don't have the second. You have to finish what you were saying there. Slavika. That sounds really interesting. And it's true. We've seen it, in the previous chapters. And it honestly, it's made me feel a lot more relaxed about the craziness of the times that we're in, because again and again, things look really hopeless, and would be hopeless if it was just human beings relying on their own capabilities. but God does each time. And I think about the horrible, lockdown years and the mandate years. God does raise up leaders. And they're often very improbable, leaders. I mean, I'm thinking about how, sorry, Loki's pacing around. He's wanting my attention. I think about how, some of the best journalism alerting people to the dangers of lockdowns and the mRNA vaccine were done by people who weren't journalists at all. They just stepped up, and I think they had God's help, and they had tiny voices to start out with, and then they ended up with giant voices. I mean, look at my own experience. I'm not saying God raised me. I think God raises up all of us, but I was totally censored by the greatest power on earth. The US government wiped me off of every platform, and now here I am with a bigger platform than ever. It doesn't, I couldn't have done it all by myself. There was something providential there helping me. And I think that's true for all of us. Would scenes in a synagogue have been like the movie Spartacus once a week? James, you're just in a bad mood. I'm not even gonna respond to that. I don't even know what you mean. All my comments are complete. You must have lost the comment. Raising up delivers and leaders, God frequent. That's all I've got, Slavica. So I'd love to know the rest, but perhaps you'll share it another time. Rose Kelleher. Hi, Rose. How are you? Lovely. God bless you, Naomi. God bless you, Rose Kelleher, and all of you. And Shauna Carroll says, good evening. And I say good evening to you. Well, there you go, you guys. What do you think? We kind of have to wrap it up, but I think it's sobering, right? But it definitely means we can't mess around. It definitely makes me feel like maybe I won't, consult astrologers, and, maybe I won't do another past life regression, and maybe, those chants in Hindu kirtan, which I've been enjoying, maybe I shouldn't be doing them. I used to think people who thought that were very provincial. But, maybe we should just err on the side, or I'm going to err on the side of safety and not whore after false gods. Or maybe I'll try to be more mindful, which is the best we can all do, I think. But yeah, God is serious. He really wants our, zeal, right? And that's really interesting too, because it's like a marriage, right? I was out with Brian drinking, as I keep confessing, for St. Patrick's Day last night. And there was a couple at a booth near us, and they were married. It looked like they were married. And the man was on his phone. They were out on a date, and the man was on his phone, and the woman kept kind of glancing at him, clearly wanting his attention. But eventually she took out her phone too, and they were both on their phones at a karaoke bar. And, I just thought, she just wants his zeal. She wants his passionate attachment. She wants him to care if another man looks at her, and to step in and protect her from other people trying to get her attention. And in modern religion, Christian, Jewish, maybe all modern religions, we're really not told that God really wants us to be in a passionate, committed, faithful relationship with him, right? It's like he's over there, like I paid my tithe, whatever. I went to High Holy Days. But this chapter really reminds us, this is like a husband who is going to get really angry if you flirt with that old flame on your phone, and he should, right? He wants that passionate exclusivity and intimacy with us. And you can't, like in a marriage, you can't have the intimacy without the exclusivity and the devotion, right? The single-mindedness to put your attention on each other. So that is, quite a motivating thing to read, even though it's pretty sobering. when you hear about these two people being stabbed to death in the tent, Rose Kelleher says he loves us so much. It's true. And Shauna Carroll, I'm going to share this. It's so moving and sad. I lost my faith in God after the loss of my daughter. I'm still struggling. Shauna Carroll, I am so sorry. And I'm so sorry that happened. I can't imagine what it must feel like to lose a child. God forbid. I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I don't have any simple, superficial words of comfort. I don't. Except that I know many people have gone through very, very, very horrible losses. I mean, yours is the ultimate loss, right? And felt like they couldn't find God and like they'd lost God and that they were struggling. And I guess I would just say, I think that's totally normal and understandable. And I wouldn't beat yourself up for it. Like I'm sure God understands that right now you can't find him. And I'm sure you're asking, as any mother would, why did this have to happen? Why me? Why her? Why him? Why her? I'm sorry, your daughter. And I don't know the answer. But I do know that a lot of modern religion has very unsatisfying responses to that question of why do we suffer? Why do good people suffer? So I will come back to you. I'm going to check with my rabbi. And I'm also going to do one of those things where you kind of open a book, a text at will, randomly, and see if there's some wisdom that emerges. Slavika says, God did not desert you and he did not desert your daughter. I'm sure that's true, but at that level of bereavement, I know that I too would. Look, I'm having trouble walking because of a neurological injury. And I say, God, why, I'm trying to do what you want me to do. I try to be a good person. I try to be a good mom, a good stepmom, a good wife. I try to speak up for everyone who's oppressed. Why do I have to struggle to walk? And I don't get an answer. I don't. I don't. But, and I'm always going to keep asking because it doesn't make sense to me, right? Except I think this dimension is not where simple things happen, right? I think there's a bigger picture. I don't fully understand it. I don't know why you lost your daughter. You didn't do anything to lose your daughter. I don't know why I struggle to walk sometimes. I don't know why, there are horrible sufferings and injustices all over the world, why children get cancer, innocent beings. I don't know. I know that question has preoccupied people forever, and I will check into what I'll check into what my rabbi says, the Torah says about a loss like that, because we don't have an answer, so far. We don't, except that God for sure is with us in our suffering, for sure. I'll stop there. Yeah. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. It's okay. There's got to be a bigger picture, right? And it's not a loss like yours. So, yeah. And Slavika says God lost his son, but resurrected him. This gets very deep. I think we should thank you, all of you. And Shauna, thank you for sharing that. I'm just so sorry. I don't know the answer, and I'm not going to trivialize your grief by trotting out something. But what I will do is look into it more, and I'll come back to you. Today's Wednesday. I'll come back to you tomorrow I'm going to try to have it be the same time, 6 o'clock. And I will try to bring you what I got from my rabbi in case I can get something from my rabbi, or I'll pray for you and I'll see if I, get any wisdom. I don't know if I will. But there's got to be a better answer than my stumbling here, just to say I'm so sorry. And you know what we can do? Let's all pray for Shauna, to send her. In Hebrew, we say refuah shlema, which means a complete healing, and that can mean a physical healing or an emotional or spiritual healing. Refuah shlema. All right, you guys, I'm going to sign off. Oh, all losses are created equal for me. I feel like grief is universal and it hurts the same for everyone. Well, that's so sweet and very generous. I would not be as generous as you are being. It's good of you to think of other people in the middle of such a loss. I'm really, 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 really sorry. Guys, let's sign off there, but let's make sure to keep Shauna Carroll and her family in our prayers. And, all of you who need healing, who are lonely, who are sad, happens to all of us. Let's just forge on and see if sending each other comfort and blessings and invoking them from, the guy who keeps telling us to turn to him helps. And I'll see you tomorrow at 6. Thank you all and take care. Take care, Shauna. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.